Welcome to another story written by Oracle 1. The Living Dolls of the Snowbound Hotel. Chapter 1. The road disappeared long before the hotel came into view. It had not ended in any clear way. There was no sign, no barrier, just a gradual surrender to snow. The asphalt narrowed, faded beneath a thickening white sheet, until it became nothing more than a memory beneath the tires. And still, Thomas drove on. The storm had arrived faster than predicted. It clawed at the car with steady persistence, wind howling across the mountainside, dragging loose snow in long, blinding sheets that erased the horizon entirely. The headlights did little more than illuminate a swirling wall of white. He should have turned back. He knew that, but the map, creased and worn from too much use, had promised a lodge not far ahead. A place marked only as Winterrest Hotel, tucked between mountain ridges, remote enough that most travelers would never find it. He needed somewhere to wait out the storm. The engine rattled uneasily as he pushed forward. Then, the outline appeared. At first, it looked like another distortion in the snow, a darker shape behind the storm. But as he crept closer, the structure revealed itself, tall, narrow, rising from the white landscape like something that had been buried and uncovered again. The hotel. Its windows glowed faintly. Warm, yellow light cutting through the storm. Thomas exhaled, tension easing slightly from his chest. "Thank God," he muttered. He pulled the car toward the entrance, tires slipping slightly before catching against packed snow near the building. The wind seemed to weaken the closer he got, as though the hotel itself shielded the ground around it. The front doors stood closed. Heavy, wooden, a dim porch light flickered above them. Thomas grabbed his coat and stepped out into the storm. The cold hit immediately, sharp, biting, forcing the air from his lungs as he pushed forward. Snow crunched under his boots, the sound muffled by the constant wind. By the time he reached the doors, his hands had already gone numb. He grabbed the handle and pulled. It opened easily, too easily. Warm air spilled out, carrying with it a faint scent. Old wood, dust, and something else. Sweet, faint, artificial. Thomas stepped inside. The door closed behind him with a dull, final thud. The lobby was quiet, too quiet. The storm outside vanished instantly, cut off as though it had never existed. The sudden absence of sound made the space feel unnatural, the silence pressing in from every direction. Thomas stood still for a moment, letting his eyes adjust. The room was dimly lit by chandeliers hanging low from the ceiling, their light soft and yellowed, casting long shadows across the wooden floor. The furniture was old, well kept, but outdated. Heavy chairs upholstered in faded patterns. A long reception desk stood against the far wall. And scattered throughout the room, dolls, dozens of them. They sat on chairs, on shelves, lined neatly along the edges of the room. Porcelain faces, glass eyes, each one dressed in old-fashioned clothing, frills, lace, tiny coats, miniature boots. Thomas frowned. "That's unsettling," he muttered. None of them moved. Of course they didn't. They were dolls. Still, something about the way they were placed felt intentional. Deliberate. Not decoration. Arrangement. Thomas shook his head, brushing snow from his coat as he approached the reception desk. "Hello?" he called out. His voice echoed softly. No response. He leaned against the counter slightly, peering over it. Empty. No bell. No sign of anyone. "Hello?" he called again, louder this time. The silence remained. Thomas exhaled slowly. "Perfect," he muttered. "Abandoned." He turned, scanning the lobby again. The dolls stared back, every single one of them. Their glass eyes catching the dim light, reflecting it in a way that made them appear almost aware. Watching, Thomas shifted uncomfortably. "Just decorations," he said under his breath. He moved toward the nearest hallway. The floor creaked faintly beneath his weight, the sound sharp in the stillness. The hallway stretched deeper into the hotel, lined with doors on either side. The lighting here was dimmer, the shadows thicker, clinging to the corners where the light failed to reach. And along the walls, more dolls, perched on small tables, sitting on the floor, leaning against the walls in carefully arranged positions. Too many. Far too many. Thomas slowed. "This is weird," he said quietly. The air felt heavier here. Cooler. The faint sweet scent from the lobby lingered, stronger now. Artificial. Like old perfume. He passed a doll seated on a small wooden chair. Its head was tilted slightly. Its painted smile fixed. Its eyes seemed to follow him. Thomas stopped. He turned slowly. The doll remained still, unmoving, facing forward. He stared at it for a long moment, then shook his head. "Get a grip," he muttered. He continued down the hallway. The doors were numbered. 101, 102, 103, all closed, all silent. Thomas reached for the handle of the nearest one and turned it. Unlocked. The door creaked open. The room beyond was small but clean. A bed, a dresser, a single lamp casting a dim glow. And on the bed, a doll, larger than the others, dressed in a pale blue dress. Its hands folded neatly in its lap. Waiting. Thomas froze in the doorway. A slow unease crept up his spine. "No," he said quietly. He stepped inside anyway. The floor creaked. The doll remained still, its head slightly tilted, its eyes fixed forward. Thomas moved closer to the bed. "It's just a toy," he said. His voice felt too loud in the small room. He reached out hesitantly, and turned the doll slightly, facing the wall instead. "There," he muttered. "Better." He stepped back. The room felt quieter now. Still. He exhaled slowly and moved toward the door. His hand reached for the handle. Behind him, a soft sound. Fabric shifting. Thomas froze. Slowly, he turned his head. The doll sat on the bed, facing him again, exactly as it had been before. Its hands folded, its head tilted, its eyes fixed on him. Watching. Thomas's breath caught in his throat. "That's not funny," he whispered. The room remained silent. The lamp flickered once. And from somewhere deeper in the hotel, a faint, delicate sound echoed through the halls. Not mechanical, not natural, soft, rhythmic, like tiny footsteps, moving closer. Chapter 2. The sound did not echo the way footsteps should. It carried too cleanly through the halls, soft, precise, evenly spaced. Not muffled by carpet, not dulled by distance. Each step distinct, as though the air itself preserved it. Tap, tap, tap. Thomas stood frozen in the doorway, his hand still resting on the handle, his breath shallow. The doll on the bed did not move. It simply watched him. The tiny footsteps continued, closer now, coming from the hallway, from the direction he had just walked. Thomas swallowed. "Someone's here," he whispered, though the words felt thin and unconvincing. He stepped out into the hallway. The air was colder than before. Not sharply cold, subtle, creeping. The kind that settled into the skin slowly, unnoticed until it was too late. The lights flickered faintly overhead. The corridor stretched in both directions, lined with identical doors, identical shadows. And dolls. Still in their places, still watching. The footsteps stopped. Silence rushed in to replace them, heavy and immediate. Thomas turned slowly, scanning the hallway. "Hello?" he called. No answer. The silence lingered for a few seconds too long. Then, tap, right behind him. Thomas spun around. The hallway remained empty. But something had changed. The doll he had passed earlier, the one seated on the small chair. It was closer. He was certain of it. Not much. A few inches. But enough. Its head tilted at a slightly different angle now, as if adjusting to a better view. Thomas's chest tightened. No, he said quietly. No, I would have seen that. The air pressed in. The faint scent of old perfume grew stronger, cloying now, sweet enough to make his throat tighten. Tap. Another step. To his left. He turned. A doll that had been sitting on a low table now stood on the floor. Balanced perfectly. Facing him. Its tiny shoes aligned neatly together. Its painted smile unchanged. Thomas took a step back. The floor creaked loudly beneath him. The sound echoed, and the dolls responded, not all at once, not obviously, but subtly. A slight shift here, a small adjustment there, heads angling, bodies straightening, tiny movements that stopped the moment he tried to focus on them directly. His pulse pounded. This isn't real, he whispered. Tap. Closer. Right beside him. Thomas flinched, turning sharply. Nothing. But the air at his side felt disturbed, as though something had just passed through it. The temperature dropped another degree. His breath fogged faintly now. The lights flickered again, longer this time, the hallway dimming before returning. And in that brief darkness, something moved. Not a doll. Not exactly. A shape. Small. Low to the ground. Moving quickly between the legs of chairs and tables. Gone before the light returned. Thomas's heart slammed against his ribs. You're not alone, he said. The statement felt wrong the moment it left his mouth. Because it implied something human. Something living. Tap. The sound came from the far end of the hallway now. Distant again, but not retreating. Repositioning. Thomas forced himself to move. Standing still felt worse. More dangerous. He walked slowly down the corridor, his eyes flicking constantly between the dolls. Counting them, tracking them, trying to remember where each one had been. But it was impossible. There were too many, and they were not consistent. One that had been leaning now stood upright. Another that had been seated now appeared further along. Closer. Always closer. The footsteps resumed, matching his pace. Tap. Step. Tap. Step. Perfectly timed. Thomas stopped. The footsteps stopped. He exhaled slowly, then took a sudden step forward. Tap. The sound came immediately. Too fast. Too precise. Like a response. Not a coincidence. It's copying me, he whispered. The realization settled into him with quiet horror. He took another step. Tap. The sound followed. Exact. Unmistakable. His chest tightened. You're mimicking, he said, louder now. The hallway seemed to listen. The dolls did not react. But something in the air shifted. Tap. The sound came again, but this time, it wasn't aligned. It came half a second too early. Thomas froze. The mistake hung in the air. Then, it corrected. Tap. Perfectly timed again. His stomach dropped. It's learning, he said. The words felt heavy. Final. The lights flickered. Violently. The hallway plunged into darkness. For a full second, nothing. Then the lights returned. And everything had changed. The dolls were closer. All of them. Not inches. Feet. The space between them had shrunk dramatically, filling the hallway with their small, unmoving bodies. Their glass eyes caught the light, reflecting it in dozens of tiny points that seemed to pulse as one. Thomas stumbled back. That's not possible. Tap. Right in front of him. He looked down. A doll stood at his feet. It hadn't been there before. He was sure of it. Its head tilted upward. Its painted eyes staring directly into his. The smile carved into its face stretched slightly wider than the others. Wrong. Subtly wrong. Thomas's breath hitched. Move, he said. The doll did not. He nudged it gently with his foot. It toppled over, landing on its side with a soft, hollow sound. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, it stood back up, not by rolling, not by shifting. It simply was upright again, facing him, closer. Thomas stumbled backward. The hallway tightened around him. Not physically, but in presence. Inattention. Every doll now oriented toward him. Every gaze fixed. Unblinking. The footsteps began again. Faster now. More numerous. Not one set. Many. All around him. Tap, tap, tap. Tiny movements echoing through the space. But the dolls, they didn't move. Not when he looked. Never when he looked. The lights flickered again. And this time, they stayed dim, barely illuminating the corridor. The shadows thickened, pooling between the dolls. Something shifted within them. Thomas's breathing became ragged. "You're not toys," he whispered. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than anything before. Then, a voice. Soft, layered, not quite formed. It came from everywhere. And nowhere. "You shouldn't have come in." Thomas's blood ran cold. Who said that? The dolls did not respond. But their heads tilted. All at once. The same angle. The same motion. Perfectly synchronized. "You brought warmth," the voice continued. The air grew colder. Sharp now. Biting. And we remembered movement. Thomas shook his head, backing away. "No," he whispered. "No, that's not. You woke us." The dolls leaned forward slightly. Not enough to fall. Not enough to fully move. But enough. Enough to break the illusion of stillness. Thomas turned and ran. The hallway stretched ahead of him, doors blurring past as his footsteps pounded against the wooden floor. Behind him, the tapping followed. Faster. Closer. Many. Too many. He reached the lobby and skidded to a stop. The room looked the same. Chairs. Desk. Chandeliers. But the dolls. There were more. Lining the edges of the room. Filling the corners. Standing where there had been empty space before. Thomas's chest heaved. "No," he said. "No, there weren't this many." The front door stood ahead. He ran toward it. Grabbed the handle. Pulled. It didn't move. He yanked harder. Nothing. The wood felt solid. Unyielding. As though it had never been meant to open from this side. Behind him. Tap. 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 He turned slowly. The hallway he had just run from was darker now. The shadows deeper. And within them, small shapes moved. Not clearly. Not fully. But enough to see. Dozens. Emerging. Approaching. Thomas backed away from the door, his pulse racing. "What do you want?" he shouted. The voice returned. Closer now. Clearer. "We want to be alive again." The first doll stepped out of the hallway. Fully. Clearly. Its small foot pressing against the wooden floor. Tap. Thomas's breath caught. It took another step. Then another. And behind it, the others followed. Slow. Measured. Learning how to move. One step at a time. Chapter 3. The first step was wrong. Thomas saw it immediately. The doll's foot pressed too firmly into the wood. The motion too deliberate. As though it understood the concept of walking but not the balance of it. Its body swayed slightly, correcting itself in small, jerking adjustments. Tap. Then another. Tap. Each movement improving, refining. Behind it, more dolls emerged from the hallway. Dozens. Their tiny bodies spilling into the lobby, stepping over thresholds they had never crossed before. Some moved stiffly, their limbs too rigid. Others hesitated, adjusting their posture as if testing the limits of their construction. Learning. Thomas stumbled backward, his shoulder striking one of the heavy chairs. It scraped loudly against the floor. The sound rippled through the room. The dolls reacted, not by turning, not all at once, but gradually. Each one shifting its head in small increments until every glass eye was fixed on him. "You don't understand," Thomas said, his voice shaking. "You're not alive. You're just." The voice cut through him. "You gave us motion." It no longer sounded distant. It came from the dolls themselves. Layered. Whispered through dozens of unmoving mouths. Thomas shook his head violently. "I didn't do anything. You entered," they replied. The first doll took another step forward. Closer now. Its painted face cracked faintly at the edges, the porcelain stretching in ways it had not been designed to. You brought warmth, the voice continued. The air around Thomas grew colder in contrast, the heat drawn from him, from the room, from everything living. You brought change. The dolls behind the first began to move more confidently now. Their steps became smoother, more coordinated, the uneven jerks fading into something disturbingly natural. Tap, tap, tap. The sound multiplied, filling the room in a steady, rhythmic chorus. Thomas's breathing became ragged. No, he whispered. No, this isn't real. It is remembered. The words settled heavily. Final. The dolls spread out, slowly surrounding him. Not rushing, not attacking, positioning, like pieces being placed on a board. Thomas's back hit the reception desk. Nowhere left to retreat. What do you want? He demanded again, louder this time. The first doll stopped a few feet away. Its head tilted, its glass eyes reflecting him clearly. We want to remain. The answer came without hesitation. Thomas's chest tightened. Then stay, he said quickly. Stay here. I'll leave. I won't come back. The dolls did not respond immediately. Instead, they moved closer, closing the distance. You misunderstand, the voice said. And for the first time, one of the dolls' mouths moved. Not wide, not exaggerated, just enough. A slight parting of the lips. A subtle shift. Wrong. Deeply wrong. This place does not exist without you. Thomas's breath hitched. What? The dolls tilted their heads again. All of them, in perfect synchronization. You are the warmth, they said. You are the movement. The realization struck slowly. Cold. Heavy. This place is feeding on me, he whispered. Yes. The dolls took another step closer. Their shadows stretched unnaturally across the floor, overlapping in ways that did not match the dim lighting above. And when I leave? Thomas asked. You cannot. The words landed like a verdict. Thomas's pulse pounded in his ears. That's not possible. The front door stood just behind him. Solid. Unmoving. You already tried, the voice reminded him. The memory hit him instantly. The handle. The resistance. The door that refused to open. You are inside, they continued. And we are becoming. The first doll lifted its arm. Slowly. Its joints creaking softly. Its hand reached toward him. Thomas flinched, pressing himself harder against the desk. Don't, he said. The doll's fingers twitched. Learning the motion. Refining it. You brought us back, it said. Its voice was clearer now. Less layered, more singular, as if one of them was beginning to dominate the others. And now, it continued, you will help us stay. Thomas shook his head violently. No. The doll's hand stopped inches from him. Its head tilted further. Then you will remain, it said simply. The temperature dropped sharply. Thomas's breath fogged heavily now. The warmth was leaving him. He could feel it, draining. His limbs grew. Heavier. Slower. No, he whispered. The dolls moved closer. All of them. Their steps now perfectly synchronized. Tap, tap, tap. The sound filled the room. Overwhelming. Inescapable. Thomas tried to push himself away from the desk. But his legs didn't respond. His body felt stiff. Incooperative. Like something was locking into place. The first doll touched his hand. Its porcelain fingers cold, unnaturally smooth. The contact sent a sharp, freezing sensation up his arm. Thomas gasped. What are you? The words caught in his throat. His fingers didn't move. He tried again. Nothing. His gaze dropped to his hand. The skin was pale, too pale, smooth, glossy, a faint crack forming near the knuckle. No, he whispered. The doll's grip tightened slightly. Balance, it said. The word echoed. And suddenly, the room shifted. Not physically, perceptually. Thomas's height changed. The furniture loomed larger. The dolls no longer seemed small. They were closer to his size now. Or, he was closer to theirs. His breathing slowed, not by choice, his chest rising in shallow, controlled motions. Too controlled. His other hand twitched, then stopped, locked. The sensation spread, up his arms, into his shoulders, his neck. He tried to scream, but his jaw resisted, opening only slightly, a soft, hollow sound escaping instead. The dolls leaned closer, watching, studying. Stillness, the voice whispered. His vision blurred, then sharpened, too sharply. Colors became muted, flat. The warmth drained completely, leaving only cold, endless cold. His thoughts slowed, fragmenting. No, I'm still. You are becoming, the dolls said. The first doll stepped back, releasing his hand. Thomas didn't fall. He remained upright, perfectly balanced, perfectly still. The room settled. The tapping stopped. Silence returned, heavy, complete. The dolls stepped away from him, one by one, returning to their places. Chairs, shelves, corners, as if nothing had happened, as if they had never moved at all. The lobby returned to its original arrangement, unchanged, unmoving, except for one new addition. Thomas stood near the reception desk, his body rigid, his posture perfect, his face smooth, still, eyes open, unblinking, a faint, painted smile stretching across lips that no longer moved. Hours passed, or days. Time no longer mattered. The storm outside continued, endless, unyielding, and eventually, another car appeared on the snow-covered road. Another traveler, drawn by the faint glow of warm light in the distance. The doors of the hotel opened easily. As they always did, the newcomer stepped inside, shivering, relieved. "Hello?" they called out. Their voice echoed softly through the lobby. No response, just silence. And dolls, so many dolls, watching, waiting, and among them, one that stood slightly taller than the rest. Near the reception desk, perfectly still, perfectly lifelike, its glass eyes fixed on the door, tracking the movement, learning, waiting for warmth, waiting for motion, waiting to become more. For more stories, like and subscribe.